Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here with my next Boruto anime review. This one is going to be for episode 65, which is called Father and Son. And this is definitely, I think, one of probably the best episode of Boruto we've seen so far. In many ways purely because of how crazy they went with the animation. You can really tell how many quality people they had on this episode, the amount of time, budget they put into this episode, because it felt like they wanted to make the big final fight of this arc the best it could be, and I think it really quite heavily surpassed the movie in terms of it showing the same fight, but using the sort of like updated version of that fight from the manga. And then just letting us see those kind of key new elements that are sort of setting up the story going forward. Because I think the only thing that in any way detracts from the hype around this episode is purely that fundamentally this is just an adaptation episode. And there's only really one new kind of plot thing that we haven't seen in the movie so far, but it was in the manga. So in that sense, like it's not new content as such, but it was shown to us and executed in this episode in such an amazing way. So the big news scene, I think, for some people is definitely the aftermath of the fight once Boruto defeats Momoshiki. This scene where like time stops and only Momoshiki, Boruto, and then kind of revealed afterwards Sasuke see what happens in this kind of conversation. And that is that basically, it's revealed that Boruto has inherited some powers of the Otsutsukis, which is, I think, implied to be his eye power, the Jogan, or whatever they're calling it, and that he can't see his own destiny, but Momoshiki can, and he knows that as his life progresses, those blue eyes will soon take everything from you. Obviously setting up to a degree that he might be able to sense the future, sense what's coming, but still not be able to stop whatever happens. And you have to link this into what we've seen previously, like from the manga and so on, of the whole Kawaki fight that we're eventually building to when Boruto's a bit older. And the ninja world seems to be ruined, and to the point where Boruto potentially is one of, if not the only, ninjas left or something like that. It's hard to know how exactly to interpret that scene, since it came out so long ago. We're still thinking about it, but here we're sort of almost like building to it, where here is someone directly telling Boruto something in the future doesn't look good for you. You may be to some degree responsible for it. You'll lose a lot of what you care about around you, but you will be important to stopping it. So a lot of important stuff coming up. I hope they incorporate the Ototsukis in a little bit more. In terms of, like, we didn't see Urashiki in this episode. He's still around somewhere. They sort of implied in the last episode that he was going to attack the Leaf Village while everyone was gone, but we didn't see that happen, and the preview for next episode makes it seem like not a lot happened. So I'm almost taking it as that Urashiki is going back to the Ototsukis to report potentially on what happened, the death of Momoshiki, and the need for maybe further involvement from the clan with Earth. Because I do think ultimately, in terms of a bigger world building arc, really delving into the Ototsukis, what they're about, you know, what the clan is really for, about how do they relate to humans at this point, given that in a way, you know, one of their clan members has formed what is effectively the new kind of evolution of humans who have chakra. So they are kind of linked to a degree. So, you know, what exactly happens there? Because again, like I've been talking about in some of my reviews, I think on a world building sense, that is what we absolutely have to get into, the fact that the Ototsukis are effectively aliens, that they're not humans in any way, and addressing the world at large and what all of this stuff really means. And Boruto being directly said to have the Ototsuki powers, I don't think it means an incredible amount, because obviously to some degree everyone who is a ninja and uses their chakra effectively has Otsutsuki powers, and then especially like Naruto and Sasuke, who are like the reincarnations of like Indra and Ashura, Ashura and Indra, directly have some of those powers and so on. I think it's going to be interesting to see exactly how to do it, and I think part of that is going to be at some point having to properly explain to us what is the nature of Boruto's eye power. What does it do? Because it's not a Byakugan. He only has it in one eye. It's not a Rinnegan. It's not a Sharingan. Any of these things. It's a completely new thing that, in the uses we've seen of it, it just seems to amplify his power. Like, it doesn't seem to like have a specific thing that it does like some of the other eye powers. In that, like, the Sharingan obviously has the like kind of reaction vision enhancement thing of like tracking and so on. The Mangekyo have, once you unlock it, you get a special ability. The Susanoo is incorporated in at that point. The Rinnegan has a bunch of different techniques as well that we've seen, and the Sasuke's one seems to be the teleportation, kind of swapping places with something that he uses a lot. Boruto's one right now just seems to be like lightning somehow, but they seem to be leaning toward lightning is Boruto's main kind of jutsu kind of element that he tends to go for. So is it just a basic kind of power enhancer type thing, where it's basically kind of him using that eye power to sort of harness the power of a god to a degree to, enhance himself with powers that are equivalent to using a Rinnegan, equivalent to, having a tail beast like Naruto. Because ultimately that's where we're going to have to get to. It's getting to Boruto being just as powerful as a Naruto as Sasuke. But as they've said already, Sasuke believing that he can surpass Naruto, so Boruto being better. And so, at some point, are we building towards the death of Naruto and Sasuke to some degree, to allow Boruto to be the one to step in and save the day? I think we're a long way from that at the moment. We have, I think, a lot of stuff to set up, because I think they ultimately will go for the structure with Boruto, where we will have a, like, Boruto Part 1 when he's younger, and then a Boruto kind of Shippuden type thing when it's dealing with him in his more kind of teenage, borderline adult years. It depends on what exactly they want to do with it, but I think they will take that approach with it, given that they've already set up the fact that the seemingly climactic battle of Boruto and Kawaki is already sort of in our minds. They've already basically told us that this is what is going to happen at some point. So I think that new scene that sort of sets up the series going forward with Boruto and Momoshiki is very, very important, and it's the only real, I suppose, heavy plot thing in this episode. Everything else in this episode is action, amazing animation, seeing the choreography that they chose for the fights and so on. It's that, and then there's a little bit of character moment with Boruto and Naruto when basically Naruto helps Boruto to power up the giant kind of vanishing Rasengan. I wish they'd maybe hit it home a little harder, like Boruto's reaction to sort of what he's seeing, what he's experiencing by basically connecting with Naruto here. Because I think what they were going for here was the idea that they sort of did with Naruto and Sasuke, where like when two shinobis are of equal level, they can kind of sense each other's feelings by like fighting and so on. And they're sort of, I think, going for this angle here where, because they're doing the same attack, the idea is that their feelings kind of are passing through it as well. And this is how Boruto comes to fully understand his father, understand where Naruto came from, the different people who inspired him, the significance of it being the Rasengan and it being learned from Jiraiya, it being Naruto's father's technique at a base level, all the people along the way that helped Naruto, and fundamentally just that Naruto grew as a character, and through that growth, through that hard work, that's how he got to the level that he's at now. Because there's a moment like midway through this episode where Boruto is just helplessly sort of watching on. There's nothing he can do because it's basically Sasuke and Naruto, the two highest level shinobi in the world, the only people who can stand up against Momoshiki. And it's the biggest example for him at this point that here is the gulf in class that he's experiencing. What kind of Sasuke in a way told him before, what kind of Hamaru has told him before, that you have potential to be that strong at some point, but it's going to take time, you kind of growing up, becoming older, training a lot more, working hard to get there. You can't do it right now. There's no quick, easy fix. You just have to work to get there, like Naruto did. And so that's where I really like that this episode had the Momoshiki scene where they addressed that Boruto sort of has these things there within him. The eye power, which he will eventually, I suppose, gain control of, and that will put him on a whole other level. That gives him that special thing. That means like, oh, Boruto doesn't need to tell Beast anymore because he has this eye power, and so on. So that's kind of the road they're going down. Plus the setup where we saw with the preview that also something has been sort of given to Momoshiki, to Boruto by Momoshiki, because he also highlights that it is a very notable thing that he has killed a god, basically. And so they're implying in a way that if a human ever kills an Otsutsuki, they are kind of granted an ability. We sort of see it a little bit if you freeze frame when he opens his hand. His hand's obviously all burned from the attack, but you can still see a sort of diamond pattern right in the middle of his palm. And that's what's going to be revealed, I assume, in the next episode, because they show the bandages and him just about to turn his hand around to look at the palm. So I think we'll get that. We'll get the reveal of that. And if you've read the manga, you know exactly sort of... I wouldn't say exactly, but we know the name of what it is and a rough idea of what it can do. We just don't know the specifics just yet. So, getting into developing Boruto's kind of unique powers that are going to propel him to be on the level of a Naruto and Sasuke. That's really, really cool. So that is kind of being Boruto's character progression, and then I assume in the next episode they'll deal with more of the aftermath, showing that Boruto has grown from all of this and is going to have a different mindset about things going forward. He's going to work harder, try and fulfill that potential, and especially now knowing that like the villain told him that he has this kind of harsh destiny ahead of him, that he has to do everything he can to sort of avert some sort of disaster that's going to happen. As for the rest of the episode and the high quality animation, I thought the Naruto Sasuke stuff when they were tag teaming Momoshiki was just amazing. Even the sequence for Boruto to eventually deliver the final blow with the Rasengan. Amazing kind of classic Naruto sequences where there is a plan. They incorporate the basic jutsus of just the standard, shadow clones, transformation jutsus, with the more high-end stuff, like obviously Naruto's crazy shadow clones, the big Kurama mode with the different Naruto chakra modes, and then stuff like great use in this episode of the Rinnegan teleportation technique. There's a couple of times where he used it really well. And then what you always get in these episodes where the animation is super high quality, some of the cleanest kind of hand-to-hand combat stuff that we've ever seen. So amazing taijutsu up close of just... Yeah, this is the sort of stuff where they kind of hide a little bit in the lower quality animation episodes and you get to see some basic taijutsu stuff. But here, they're really showing you a sort of a martial art, a technique to it, a counter, the blocks. Really cool, especially that sequence of Naruto in the kind of full glowing mode, fighting Momoshiki one-on-one, just blocking everything, was really, really nicely done. And then I think some of my favorite moments were the whole giant shuriken technique. When Sasuke brought that out, he threw it past Naruto, Naruto kind of cloned it, and then they start to incorporate like all the lightning through it, the transformations, because it was a reference back to the initial time where Sasuke and Naruto freed Kakashi from Zabuza, where they first did the throw the giant shuriken, but it's actually someone transformed into it. So I loved how they did that, but they sort of layered on top of it because they're so much more skilled now, and like Sasuke is part of the transformation now, but like he's throwing something else and that's transformed into Naruto. Naruto's throwing his like Rasen Shuriken and that's a transformed thing. And just all to deliver that like incredible punch. And then like later on in the episode, how they get rid of Momoshiki's ability to absorb things using the Rinnegan in his hand. Again, great use of the Rinnegan technique where like I think Sasuke throws a kunai at Momoshiki, but he catches it. Then he just goes to deliver a jutsu. So as Momoshiki is like absorbing the jutsu, he uses the Rinnegan technique to switch places. So he basically like absorbs a kunai into his hand, poking the eye, basically eliminating that from the fight, and opening up the opportunity for Boruto to deliver the final Rasengan. So I thought that was really cool how they did those big sequences. Of course, the other Kage sort of got wrecked earlier on in the episode. Gaara put up a little bit of a fight, but the others did get taken out quite quickly. And I think part of that was that the limitation on this fight of the fact that like he was basically immune to any sort of energy-based jutsu made it so that like it incredibly limited so many of them. In that like one of them like would have been able to use the he uses like the laser circus, the kind of Gale style technique, the lasers. That would have been really cool. But to keep him as like an intelligent character, he couldn't do that because it would just give him power. Kuratsuchi like has like lava style. Doesn't she have like 2 Kekkei Genkais? So yeah, she has like lava style. She couldn't really use that, and so on. And then Chojiro's sword basically fires energy attacks as well, so he couldn't really use that. So those were all sort of limited by what they could do. And while they were definitely established to like they could take the hits and still get back up, keeping them somewhat strong, they couldn't play the role that they were kind of required to play. They could have potentially played in the fight, but it was about Naruto. The arc overall is about basically Boruto's interactions with Naruto, Boruto's interactions with Sasuke, and where they're going. And obviously they're setting up for the next episode that Boruto is sort of going to discover what his ninja way is. He's going to reveal what it is. We know that Sarada's is that she wants to become Hokage, but what is Boruto's? And that's going to be an interesting one. So yeah, I'm excited for next week's episode, but absolutely this episode is incredibly worthy of a lot of the praise it's getting. I hope this episode in a way brings more people into watching the show, because I think the hype around Boruto hasn't been as high as it was for obviously original Naruto, but I think there's the potential for this to get back into it. Once the plot properly gets going after this, I think people might get more invested in what's going on. So I hope this has the effect of really bringing people back. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to see obviously when the next big high quality animation episode is, and especially how big of a shift there is from this episode to next episode. Is the next episode going to be bad? But at the same time, we've had a lot of delays in the last couple of weeks. Obviously, like, it's been 2 weeks waiting for this episode. We basically had more or less like the last 2 or 3 episodes, there's only really been maybe like an episode and a bit of full content, and there's been a lot of recap stuff. So there still should be some high quality animation left, and I hope they get the character moments. I hope they give the character moments good animation as well as we properly wrap up the arc. But yeah, very, very, very good episode of Boruto. Probably the best one that we've had. I think definitely. I don't know if any of the others visually come to mind, but really, really strong episode. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on the episode. But yeah, that's been my review for the episode. Thanks for watching, and bye.